If you are a Social Security recipient and you have been hearing rumors swirling around about missing March 2026 payments, you are not alone in feeling confused, frustrated, or even a little frightened. Millions of seniors across the United States depend on their monthly Social Security checks not as a luxury, but as an absolute lifeline. It pays for groceries. It pays for prescription medications. It keeps the lights on and the heat running during the cold winter months that bleed into early spring. So when there is any talk at all, about Social Security payments being disrupted, delayed, or altered in some way, it sends a wave of anxiety through households from coast to coast. And right now, that anxiety is very real, very understandable, and very much worth addressing with clear, detailed, and honest information. Let us start from the very beginning and work through everything you need to know about what is actually happening with Social Security payments, scheduled for March 2026, why some recipients may not receive a payment on the dates they expect, what the Social Security Administration's official payment calendar looks like, and what steps you can and should take right now to protect yourself financially and make sure you are not caught off guard. The Social Security Administration does not send every recipient their payment on the same day. This is something that surprises a lot of people, especially those who are newer to receiving benefits, or those who have always assumed that Social Security works like a single, unified paycheck that goes out to everyone at the same time on the same date every month. That is simply not how the system operates. The SSA uses a staggered payment schedule that is based primarily on the birth date of the primary beneficiary. This tiered system was put into place decades ago to help the SSA manage the enormous volume of payments that go out every single month and to reduce processing burdens on the banking system. Here is how the breakdown works. If you were born between the 1st and the 10th of any month, your Social Security payment is scheduled to arrive on the second Wednesday of each month. If your birthday falls between the 11th and the 20th of any given month, your payment is sent on the third Wednesday of the month. And if you were born between the 21st and the 31st, your payment is issued on the fourth Wednesday of the month. There is also a separate group of recipients, those who began receiving Social Security benefits before May 1997, as well as Supplemental Security Income recipients, who receive their payments on the 3rd of each month, or on the 1st of the month in the case of SSI, regardless of their birth date. Now here is where things get critically important for March 2026 specifically, and this is the heart of what so many seniors are confused about right now. The SSA payment schedule is fixed according to Wednesdays of the month, but March 2026 has a very specific calendar structure that means certain payment dates are going to fall differently than recipients might be used to, and in some cases, a payment that a recipient normally expects near the beginning of a new month may have already been paid at the end of the previous month instead. This is the source of enormous confusion, and it is the reason the headline of this video caught your attention in the first place. When the Social Security Administration's scheduled payment Wednesday falls on a federal holiday, the payment is moved to the business day immediately before that holiday. This is standard SSA procedure and has been in place for a long time. The issue arises when that adjustment causes a payment to move from one month into the previous month. When that happens, recipients do not get a double payment, one in the adjusted month and another in the original scheduled month. They simply receive one payment that has been moved earlier, and then they must wait until the following month for their next regularly scheduled payment. From the perspective of the recipient, it can feel as though they are being skipped for an entire month, even though technically what happened is that their payment arrived early, not that it was missed entirely. Looking at the March 2026 payment schedule with fresh eyes and full attention to the calendar, there are some very important dates to be aware of. The second Wednesday of March 2026 falls on March 11th. The third Wednesday falls on March 18th. The fourth Wednesday falls on March 25th. For SSI recipients, the payment is typically on the 1st of the month, which in March 2026 would be March 1st. However, if March 1st falls on a weekend or holiday in a given year, that payment may be moved to the last banking day of February. Seniors who receive SSI should be particularly vigilant about this specific timing issue, because it means the payment they associate mentally with March actually arrived at the end of February, and they will not see another SSI deposit until April 1st. This gap, whether it spans several weeks or even close to a full month, is not a glitch. It is not a mistake. It is not the government stealing your money or the SSA malfunctioning. It is a mathematical reality of how the payment calendar intersects with the actual days of specific months. But understanding this intellectually does not make it any easier to manage your household budget when you are waiting for money that you are counting on, and it does not seem to be arriving on the schedule you expected. There is something even larger happening in the broader Social Security landscape right now that has been fueling anxieties and generating enormous amounts of online discussion, social media posts, news coverage, and genuine concern among advocacy groups that work on behalf of seniors and disabled Americans. That larger context involves the ongoing political and budgetary debates in Washington, D.C., and the actions of various government entities that have touched on Social Security in ways that were once considered virtually unthinkable. In recent months, there have been significant developments at the Social Security Administration itself as an institution. There have been substantial staff reductions at the SSA as part of broader federal workforce restructuring efforts. The SSA employs tens of thousands of people across its central offices, regional offices, and local field offices scattered across every state in the country. These workers process new benefit claims, handle appeals, update recipient records, respond to questions, and maintain the systems that ensure payments go out accurately and on time every single month. When staffing levels drop sharply, all of those functions are affected. Processing times slow down, wait times increase, errors become more likely, and for people who are trying to apply for benefits or make changes to their existing benefits, the road becomes much longer and more frustrating. Reports from advocacy organizations and from individuals who have attempted to contact the SSA in recent months have described extremely long wait times on the SSA's national telephone helpline, reduced hours and services at some local field offices, and in some cases closures or consolidations of offices that had previously served specific communities. For seniors who are not comfortable navigating online systems and who rely on being able to walk into a local SSA office or pick up the phone and speak with a human being, these changes represent a real and significant barrier to getting help when they need it. Beyond the staffing and operational concerns, there has been considerable public debate about whether any of the current administration's broader fiscal policies could ultimately affect Social Security payments themselves. Social Security is, by law, funded through a dedicated trust fund that receives its money from payroll taxes paid by working Americans and their employers. The program is not funded through the general federal budget in the same way that many other government programs are. This structural separation has historically made Social Security more resistant to the kinds of budget cuts and funding battles that affect other federal programs. However, that does not mean the program is completely invulnerable to policy changes, administrative decisions, or disruptions to the systems that process and deliver payments. Some of the concern that has been circulating, and that may have brought you to this video in the first place, stems from discussions about the federal debt ceiling, continuing resolution battles in Congress, and the possibility that at some extreme point of fiscal crisis, even Social Security payments could theoretically be affected. It is important to be honest about this. Legal and policy experts have debated whether Social Security payments could technically be interrupted in a severe debt ceiling crisis. The consensus among most experts is that the SSA has the legal obligation and the mechanisms to continue making payments even during government shutdowns and most forms of fiscal disruption. But the word theoretically being attached to any kind of disruption of Social Security payments is enough to generate real fear among people for whom those payments are genuinely essential. You deserve to know the honest picture, which is this. As of the time this information is being shared with you, the Social Security Administration has not announced any suspension, reduction, or cancellation of regularly scheduled benefit payments for March 2026. If you are not receiving a payment in March that you expected, the most likely explanation, by far, is the payment calendar issue described earlier in this discussion. Your payment may have been delivered at the end of February instead of the beginning of March, or your specific birthday-based payment date simply falls in a different week than you remembered or expected. But what should you actually do right now, regardless of where things stand politically or institutionally? The single most powerful tool available to Social Security recipients today is the My Social Security online account available at SSA.gov. If you do not already have an account on that platform, creating one should be a priority. Through your My Social Security account, you can see your complete payment history, verify your banking information for direct deposit, confirm your current benefit amount, check when your next payment is scheduled, and receive important notices from the SSA electronically. Having direct access to your own account information means you are not dependent on waiting for mail to arrive or trying to get through on a phone line that may have extremely long hold times. If you do not have internet access or are not comfortable using online systems, reaching out to a trusted family member, a senior center, or a local advocacy organization that works with older adults can be an important step. Many communities have resources specifically designed to help seniors navigate government benefit systems, and these organizations can often help you verify your payment schedule, check on the status of any pending issues with your account, and advocate on your behalf if something has gone wrong. If your payment is genuinely late, meaning it has been more than 3 business days past your scheduled payment date, and it has not arrived in your bank account or in your mailbox, the SSA recommends contacting them directly to report the issue. You can reach the SSA by calling 1-800-772-1213. Be prepared for potentially long wait times given the current staffing situation, but do not let that discourage you from making the call if you genuinely believe there is a problem with your payment. Document the date and time you called, the name of any representative you speak with, and what you are told. This creates a record that can be helpful if you need to follow up. It is also worth understanding the difference between Social Security retirement benefits, Social Security disability insurance, and Supplemental Security Income, because while these programs are all administered by the SSA, they have different funding mechanisms, different eligibility rules, and in some respects different payment schedules and different levels of vulnerability to budget-related disruptions. SSI in particular is funded differently from Social Security Retirement and SSDI, and recipients of SSI should pay especially close attention to any policy changes or budget discussions that involve the program specifically. For married couples where both spouses receive Social Security, the payment schedule can be even more complicated because each person's payment is based on their own birth date and benefit history. This means a household might receive 2 separate payments on 2 different Wednesdays of the same month, or in certain months one or both of those payments might be adjusted due to holiday scheduling. Keeping a simple written calendar of expected payment dates for each person in the household is a practical step that costs nothing and can prevent a great deal of confusion and unnecessary worry. Something that does not get discussed often enough is the importance of building even a modest financial cushion to buffer against the kind of payment timing irregularities that are a permanent and structural feature of the Social Security payment calendar. For people living on fixed incomes, this is obviously much easier said than done. When your monthly income is your monthly income and your monthly expenses are your monthly expenses, there is often very little left over to save. But even a small reserve, a few $100s in a savings account that you commit to not touching except in a genuine emergency, can make the difference between a stressful month where a payment arrives a week late and a genuinely devastating month where you cannot pay your rent or buy your medication on time. There are community resources that can help with emergency financial needs for seniors, including local area agencies on aging, food banks that specifically serve older adults, prescription assistance programs offered by pharmaceutical companies and through the Medicare Extra Help program, and utility assistance programs like LIHEAP that help low-income households pay heating and cooling bills. Knowing these resources exist in your community before you need them means you are in a much stronger position if a payment delay or financial irregularity does create a temporary cash flow problem. The broader conversation about the future of Social Security is one that every American, not just seniors, not just current recipients, but every single working person in this country, should be engaged in. Social Security is not just a senior citizen program. It is a fundamental part of the American social contract. Workers pay into it their entire working lives. It provides not just retirement benefits, but disability protection for working-age adults and survivor benefits for children and spouses of deceased workers. When there are serious, credible discussions happening about the program's finances, its administration, or its future, citizens have both the right and the responsibility to pay attention, to ask questions, and to engage with their elected representatives about their expectations and concerns. The Social Security Trust Funds, the Old Age and Survivors Insurance Trust Fund, and the Disability Insurance Trust Fund are projected under current law to face financial pressures in the coming years. Actuaries and policy analysts have long noted that without some form of legislative action, the trust funds could eventually be depleted to the point where they can only pay a percentage of scheduled benefits from ongoing payroll tax revenue. These projections have been discussed and debated for decades. They are not new, but they take on new urgency in a political environment where the willingness to reach bipartisan compromise on major legislation has become increasingly uncertain. What seniors and future retirees alike should be pushing for and watching carefully is transparency, stability, and genuine commitment from elected officials to the long-term solvency and reliability of the Social Security system. There are multiple policy approaches that economists and policy experts have proposed for shoring up the trust funds over the long term, ranging from adjustments to the payroll tax cap, to modifications, to the benefit formula, to changes in the retirement age. Each of these approaches has trade-offs, and none of them is without controversy. But the fact that solutions exist and have been studied extensively means that the challenges facing Social Security are not insurmountable. They are political challenges as much as they are financial ones. In the meantime, what matters most for the person watching this right now, the senior who depends on their monthly check and who wants to know what is happening in March 2026, is this. Verify your payment schedule using the SSA's official website or by calling the SSA directly. Check your bank account or mailbox on your actual scheduled payment date, not on a date you assumed based on previous months. If your payment has not arrived within 3 business days of your scheduled date, report it. Set up direct deposit if you have not already done so, because direct deposit is faster, more reliable, and less vulnerable to delays than paper checks. Create or log into your My Social Security account to stay informed about your own benefit status, and connect with community resources and advocacy organizations so that you know where to turn if something does go wrong. The fear that surrounds any news about Social Security payments is completely understandable. These are not abstract dollars. They represent decades of work and contribution. They represent the promise made to generations of Americans that if you work hard and pay into the system will be there for you when you need it. That promise is worth protecting, worth fighting for, and worth staying informed about. The best defense against fear is knowledge, and the best protection against disruption is preparation. Stay informed, stay connected, know your rights, know your payment schedule, know your resources, and know that the anxiety you feel about your financial security and retirement is shared by millions of your fellow Americans, which is exactly why the conversation about Social Security's present and future is one that cannot and should not be allowed to fade into the background noise of political debate. It is too important. You are too important. And your security in the years you have earned the right to enjoy deserves nothing less than full attention, full transparency, and full commitment from the institutions and the leaders entrusted with protecting it.